Hideo Kojima is Metal Gear Solid. From the cardboard boxes to reading your memory card data.
Oh, you like sweet pudding.
This is why the Metal Gear Solid series will die without Hideo. Hideo Kojima is a video game designer born in Tokyo, Japan. He is most known for his involvement with Konami games and was formerly the vice president at Konami Computer Entertainment Japan, where he would create a number of successful games, including Snatcher, Policenauts, and the Metal Gear series. Kojima and Konami went hand in hand, and the duo seemed unstoppable. But fast forward to the latest Metal Gear game in the series, and the relationship between the two turned sour and would ultimately end with Kojima leaving Konami and creating his own independent studio. What was the cause of this? Well, first we need some context, so allow me to give you a quick rundown of the Metal Gear series so far. Quick disclaimer, I'm aware that there are numerous Metal Gear titles ranging from the early Metal Gear up to Peace Walker and Rising. Just for the sake of this video, I'm only going to discuss the main storyline games from MGS1 to MGS5. Right, with that out of the way, back to the video. Hideo Kojima was always involved in the Metal Gear series since its creation, but he only truly took control of the reins with the release of Metal Gear Solid on the first ever PlayStation. Kojima was involved in the game design of Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2 in the 80s and the 90s, but Metal Gear Solid truly allowed him to have creative freedom as he wrote, produced, and directed the title. Metal Gear Solid is a stealth action game directed by Hideo Kojima and Konami Japan. To say the series was a commercial success was an understatement, with over 6 million copies being sold and officially being ranked as the 8th best-selling game on PlayStation. Alongside the commercial success, the title is also seen as the game that made the stealth genre popular. Metal Gear Solid is based on a rogue group known as Foxhound taking over a remote island known as Shadow Moses during a US government training mission. Why is this important, you ask? Well, hidden on the island just happens to be a nifty bit of kit known as Metal Gear Rex, a weapon system that has worldwide nuclear strike capabilities. The rogue group Foxhound is led by a naughty bloke known as Liquid Snake, who just so happens to be your biological brother in the game. More on that later. Liquid Snake is targeting Metal Gear to hold the US government and the world at ransom. His request? The remains of the greatest soldier who ever lived, Big Boss. In some truly Elon Musk levels of big brain, Liquid wants to use the remains of Big Boss to create an army of super soldiers through gene therapy. Are you lost yet? Stay with me. With the world potentially at risk, Secretary of Defense Roy Campbell puts out a call to every single country in the world to combine together in efforts to reclaim the remote island back. Nah, I'm just kidding. He calls a bloke called Solid Snake that's retired and smokes 40 cigarettes a day to come out of retirement and save the world. Oh, and by the way, there won't be any help, and if you mess up, you're on your own. This is essentially the start of introducing stealth action into gameplay. You're not going to have an army behind you, it's just you and the cigarettes you've managed to sneak with you on the island. Don't ask me where he stored them. The emphasis is on sneaking and stealth throughout the game, which really defined the series and inspired other games moving forward. Snake must navigate his way through the heavily guarded areas, and if spotted, would trigger an alert sound that you will have heard in every single YouTube meme video you've ever watched. The alert system would have a timer, which required you to hide and lose sight of the enemy. The game provides numerous methods to assist you in your stealth adventures, with the option of crawling through confined spaces, hiding in cardboard boxes, and knocking on walls. The world truly is your sneaky oyster. The gameplay mechanics push you towards stealth early on. If you try fighting waves of enemies with your close quarters combat methods, you're most likely going to trigger the nostalgic game over screen. While at the time, this was trailblazing for the genre, Kojima had actually planned this out numerous times, but the consoles that existed were not powerful enough to hold his ambitious desires. Metal Gear Solid was originally going to be released as Metal Gear 3 for the 3DO interactive multiplayer in 1994, but due to the decline in support of the console, development was shifted towards the PlayStation. Kojima toyed with the idea of completely rebranding the franchise as he thought Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2 weren't very well known, but due to Metal Gear being his first ever game with Konami, he decided to stick with the series but rename it to Metal Gear Solid. Why the subtle name change? Well, in true Kojima fashion, it was actually a hidden message. The Solid in the title actually has three meanings, with the first being a reference to the main character Solid Snake, the second being the game's use of 3D graphics, and finally, in a hilarious twist, Kojima said it was a subtle dig towards their Japanese rivals, Square. You might know Square as their better-known counterpart, Square Enix. You know, the people responsible for that small game series known as Final Fantasy. During the development of Metal Gear Solid, with Kojima leading the way for the project, he truly left no stone unturned in the creativity department. Kojima literally had a SWAT team come in and educate the developers with demonstrations of vehicles, weapons, and explosives. Can you imagine the paperwork their HR department had to fill out? Add to this, Kojima was a perfectionist, even to the point that he demanded every single desk in the game was individually designed, stating, if the player isn't tricked into believing the world is real, then what is the point in making this game? From using Lego pieces to recreate the levels of Shadow Moses, to using clay models to recreate the characters, it was clear that Kojima had a clear vision in mind. Metal Gear Solid, once released, was praised for its truly groundbreaking game mechanics. I vividly remember the days of the battle against Psycho Mantis as a child, in which you started to tell me about the save data on my memory card, referring to whatever games you had previously played, and me being amazed at this. Add to this that it would be able to read your every move unless you physically plugged your controller from port 1, port 2, and also that a key codec number you required to progress in the game was hidden on the back of the case of the physical game, and this was truly a teaser of what brilliance Kojima had in store for us over the years. Metal Gear Solid 1 was actually supposed to be Hideo's last game with Konami involved with the franchise. But the fans were relentless in wanting Hideo to stay involved. Fast forward to Metal Gear Solid 4, where Hideo was trying to step away from the franchise.
What took you so long?
One of the reasons he returned to complete MGS4 was due to the death threats the team were receiving due to Kojima not being involved. The final game in the series is Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, which is set in the past and is based on the story of Big Boss. But I don't want to talk about the story of the game. Now we have finally caught up with the timeline, we can discuss the fallout between Hideo Kojima and Konami, which ultimately led to his departure, with him no longer being involved in the MGS series. During interviews as the game was being produced, Kojima was strongly hinting that the game would be a complete shift of pace and would be open world, with players finding hundreds of hours of content even after the main storyline had been completed. A huge shock to the fans was the absence of David Hayter, who is, in my opinion, Solid Snake. Kiefer Sutherland did a great job, but nothing quite compares to David Hayter's portrayal of the Snake characters.
I'm telling you, shoot!
The game was set to release on September the 1st, 2015, but cracks were starting to form between Kojima and Konami, with reports surfacing on March 19th, 2015 that there was a fallout between Konami and Kojima Productions, with rumours that Kojima Productions would be no more and that Kojima would likely leave Konami after the release of MGS5. This forced both parties' hands, as a day later they would release a joint statement confirming the restructuring of the company, but that in no way would it affect the game. Kojima was even tasked with making a new Silent Hill title involving Norman Reedus as its protagonist, but ultimately this never came to fruition thanks to the fallout. The first hint was when Konami announced a corporate restructuring, citing they wanted a headquarters controlled system in order to respond to the rapid marked changes of the digital entertainment business. To put that in layman's terms, they wanted everyone to be working out of the same building and to keep an eye on everyone. Kojima clearly did not agree with this, and fans started noticing ever so slight changes, such as a Hideo Kojima game being removed from the marketing of MGS5. To add to that, they even removed it from the final artwork of the game case. Reports then began to surface that Konami had restricted access to corporate internet, emails and phone calls for Kojima Productions staff, a huge slap in the face to a man who had worked for their company for 30 years. It was also rumoured that Kojima Productions staff were now seen as contractors, not employees. This was around the same time Konami made an announcement that as a company they wanted to be mobile first thinking, meaning that is where their emphasis and resources would go, likely further annoying Kojima. Following this shift in emphasis and structure, there was a huge morale decrease, with staff reporting that cameras had been installed to watch staff,
A surveillance camera?
and supervisors were closely tracking lunch breaks and publicly shaming employees who were out of the office for too long. As a final blow to the legend that is Kojima, Konami had one further insult reserved for Kojima. Hideo was expected to attend the Game Awards 2015, which was hosted by his good friend Jeff Keighley. MGS5 was nominated in 5 categories, and it was ultimately Kiefer Sutherland, the voice of Big Boss, who accepted the award on behalf of Kojima Productions and the dev team. This is where Jeff became a legend in my book, when he gave an unrehearsed monologue basically publicly shaming Konami for stopping Kojima and the team from attending.
As you noticed, Hideo Kojima is not here with us tonight, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. Mr. Kojima had every intention of being with us tonight, but unfortunately he was informed by a lawyer representing Konami just recently that he would not be allowed to travel to tonight's awards ceremony to accept any awards.
Kojima officially left Konami, and it took a matter of days before he was snapped up by Sony to create a console-exclusive game for the PS4.
Hello everyone, I'm back.
Why was all of this relevant to the title of this video? Why will the Metal Gear Solid franchise die without Kojima? There are numerous talented dev teams and producers out there that I'm sure Konami could hire and would do a good job at producing a post-Hideo MGS game. But what made the series special is Hideo's out-of-the-box thinking, which is ironic considering how iconic the cardboard box is, and you just can't replicate this. There have been numerous tactical espionage games that have tried, but none have achieved this. On paper, half of the storyline script would never have made it into a game had it not have been for Kojima producing it. It's a shame to see such a destructive breakdown of a relationship, which pretty much assures we will not see Kojima's return to the series. But with the Kojima Productions very much active at the moment, here's to hoping a new title comes along and steals our hearts the way Metal Gear Solid 1 did for me as a child.